welcome to AQN 6417, Nutrition for the High-Risk Infant and the Newborn in Intensive Care Unit. Today, I have invited Nicholas and Janine, two of my students that have taken numerous courses with me in the pediatric nutrition, as well as undergraduate classes with me, to just help us introduce an overview of the course and to actually provide some of the orientation and expectations from this course. Most of you have had me before, but maybe there might be a few of you that have never experienced any of the pediatric nutrition courses. So Janine and Nicholas, would you like to say hi and anything that you'd like to say right now?
Thank you, Dr. Abel, for having us.
Yeah, happy to be here. Happy to share our knowledge with you.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're both here. It makes it a little more informative and relaxed, and that's what I'm really hoping, that in this course we can get to know each other, build relationships, and build a network of community, because the NICU is a very intense course, and it is the highest acuity of all the types of learning out there. So I just want to give you a little bit about my credentials and background. My name is Deborah Abel. I have a PhD in School of Health and Rehabilitation Science with a minor in pediatric nutrition. I am currently the director of the graduate certificate in pediatric nutrition here at Florida International University in Miami, Florida. I am also a clinical associate professor in the Department of Dietetics and Nutrition in the School of Robert Stemple College of Public Health and Social Work. And I'd like to just welcome you. I have personally worked in a NICU for over 10 years up at Riley Children's Hospital in Indianapolis, Indiana. It was a level 4 acuity, and I learned a lot from the neonatologists and rounding with the physicians. So let's get started. What questions do you have, Janine or Nicholas?
To be honest, Dr. Abel, I know, I've taken a lot of courses with you, so this is definitely not my first time in one of your classes, and I know that they can be challenging, but in particular, this course sounded very intimidating just in the title. So I guess my first question would be, what are the expectations that you have for us in this course?
Well, that's a great question. And in this course, you'll be learning how to critically think at a very high level. Like I just mentioned previously, the acuity level of these premature infants is extremely high. Some of these babies will be born at 26, 27, 8 weeks. And through this course, you're going to learn how to put together all of the different anatomy, physiology, biochemistry that you have learned throughout your career and start to work through it. One of the things that my colleague and I used to say when we worked in the NICU is we would fix one thing on that little premature infant and 3 other things would break. How closely the different parts of the physiology and the different systems within the body interact. And just because you focus on one area, then you may have problems in another area. So you will learn a lot about how the infants work. You're going to learn a lot about math. The role of the dietitian in the NICU is calculating many calculations, both for parental nutrition and enteral nutrition, and looking at what we are actually feeding those babies and watching how they grow. That's one of the reasons we invited Nick along, because he's going to really help coach us through the math. So yes, I'm going to provide templates that you'll be able to just follow along and do the math so that you can learn the calculations. And then as you learn the calculations, you will be able to readjust your recommendations for these scenarios. The scenarios are real life scenarios that I have actually seen in the NICU.
Well, I've only taken one of your classes before, well, except for undergrad, of course. But why should I take this course if I don't feel as though I'm going to be working in the NICU? Of course, I want my certificate, but if I don't plan on working in the NICU, is this course really important to me? Should I be taking it?
Nick, that's a great question. And I know you well, even though you only took one other pediatric class. And I understand that you have some goals of wanting to be a manager and possibly leading in the area of food service or even research. But what I have found and the feedback I have received from previous students is even if they don't desire to work in a NICU per se, that they have learned how to critically think at a much higher level than they ever imagined would be possible. And they understand how to work through a scenario or a problem and kind of quickly prioritize what is extremely the most important situation. And so through practice, of these different scenarios every week in the modules, you will learn how to critically think that is a skill that's transferable to any area of your life, even relationships in dating or getting married. We often don't know how to actually prioritize and really rethink through what is the most important strategy we need to get the outcome that we want. And that is what you'll learn through taking this course in the NICU.
Well, there you go. Relationship advice from Dr. Abel. Well, that's very interesting. I see what you mean, different transferable skills, critical thinking is definitely one of them. So what are the objectives for this course? What do we plan on doing? What are we going to learn moving forward?
Well, there are some very key objectives. The first one is just learning how to assess and evaluate growth and food and nutrient intakes using appropriate normative data for growth and energy intake. Just as the world is different between adults and adolescents and children and infants, so is the world of premature infants. It's very different than an infant. We have set normative data that has been established for infants, but we have very different data and normative data for the preterm infant. So this will be the first step in learning how to critically think, is to be able to accurately assess that intake, and that's why the math is so important. Then the next goal is to create and integrate evidence-based nutrition recommendations into the case scenarios. It is very important that you learn about the literature and being able to cite the literature. Often neonatologists or physicians or pediatricians are going to come to you with a question and they want to know your rationale, and your rationale should be based on evidence-based literature. You're going to learn how to create an appropriate nutrition care plan using the knowledge of preterm guidelines into case scenarios. So you're going to really learn how to be the expert. You're going to learn to explain appropriate roles for the dietitian or the clinical healthcare professional. There are certain boundaries. I remember one time when I was rounding in the NICU and I was super gung-ho to get this little baby to grow, and the neonatologist turned to me and said, "Debbie, until I get this baby to breathe, that's the most important thing." So there is just certain boundaries that as a clinician that we need to understand what our role is as a healthcare professional. You're going to learn how to explain or compile and interpret evidence-based literature to develop the best practice nutrition positions on key pediatric topics in both the preterm and newborn intensive care population, and even in the term population, that is about a third of the population in the NICU.
So Dr. Abel, you mentioned about our core scenarios that we're going to have in this course, basically essentially the case studies. And it just kind of brought me back because I know that previously in a lot of our case studies, and I know you were also mentioning that we're going to have to learn how to critically think and use evidence-based literature. I do know in the past, like I learned a lot and also saw a lot of new perspectives when I actually worked as a team instead of just working as an individual. So what do you recommend in that sense?
Great, and hopefully even this answer will help people to realize when you actually do work in a NICU with these very fragile little premature infants, it is important that you work with other colleagues and get input, because everybody has a different set of glasses on and they have a different perception. You'll even find that as you go out and work, like one population might say, you know, this is the normative data that I use, and another population might say, you know what, this is how I perceive things, this is how I was trained. And so working with other students is not only great in trying to help you to facilitate learning and strategies, but it also opens your mind up to realize not everyone approaches these babies the same, and they might even have different priorities. So the way I set it up, we will have 3 or 4 scenarios that you do individually, because those are really learning how to do calculations. But all of the other scenarios can be worked on in a group of 2 or 3 students, and just you hand them one assignment for all of your partners. And I actually highly encourage working with other students. I really, each week I ask the students to write a reflection, and I really take those reflections to heart and think about ways to actually improve the learning and improve the nature of the course. And one of the constant feedback is, can I really maybe do more videos of the actual scenarios and my level of expectation? So I'm going to take the scenarios that we already have in place, and we're going to actually walk through them, and then I'm going to create new scenarios for you to practice in. And I personally have seen or experienced that a lot of times you can have the knowledge, but you have a complete guidance of fear and low confidence that you don't move forward in wanting to answer even the scenarios. I've had students say, oh, when I got your feedback, I cried for 20 minutes because all I could think of was I was going to kill one of these babies. So I think that having video to actually watch and walk you through the expectation of the scenario, I'm hoping will build your confidence in completing the work in the course.
What is the layout of our NICU courses, just for those who maybe haven't taken a pediatric course with you before? Sure. What should, in those expectations, what should?
Yeah, that's a great question. The main part of the course are the weekly scenarios. Every week, there'll be either videos or PowerPoints or readings. We have a textbook. So this is the textbook that we are going to use. You do not need to go out and purchase it. I actually have the chapters online that you'll be able to have access to them.
Ooh, awesome.
Yes. So you'll have readings from the textbook. You will have PowerPoints and PDFs of articles available to you. So each week, the first thing that I would encourage you to do is to pull up the scenario and kind of review it. Then the next thing is to look over the quiz questions and then begin to do the assigned readings and the PowerPoint and look at the videos. Again, something new this year is we're going to have videos of most of the modules to actually understand and facilitate a higher learning of the actual assignment. So that would be a good thing to do early on. And then as you work through things and see and discover the answers, take the quiz. You can take the quiz twice. The quiz is really a tool to just help you to kind of prioritize, because there is a lot of material to cover and look at. And then at the very end of each module, you will do a personal reflection that answers 4 questions. It's one more way to reiterate your learning and retain the information longer. So there's a quiz, a scenario, readings from the textbook and other main articles. There'll be supplemental articles that will be labeled that way. They're just maybe to pique your interest.
So basically it's scenarios, research paper, quizzes, readings, of course, and reflections.
Yes. You got it.
Oh.
Good job.
Yeah.
The last thing I'd like to encourage you is we did interview one of my prior students that graduated from the pediatric certificate. Her name is Kira Valderrama, and she actually gave birth to a very premature infant. And we interviewed her and put that on. I'm not going to ask you any test questions about it, but it really may help you to see from the perspective of a mother who had a premature infant. And so I would encourage you to watch that video now too. The other thing is I do use Zoom throughout the course. So never spend long amount of time with struggling. Instead, either email me with questions or schedule a Zoom meeting. I am pretty flexible with even weekends and evenings if you are a working person, but we can schedule something and we can interact, and I can get usually that level of frustration resolved pretty quickly. So I'm here to help facilitate learning as best that I can.
I would definitely encourage any of the students to make Zoom meetings with you or just email you with the questions, because you're very, very, very thorough, very flexible, very adaptable, and also very good at changing our perspectives of how we're thinking. And
it always helps to bounce your ideas off someone else. So
it really does.
A quick email always helps.
Yes.
All right. Well, good luck to everyone in this course. Take advantage of Dr. Abel. She's really great and a great resource.
Signing off.
All right. Bye-bye.